I can't imagine that I would do anything different. I mean, I don't see it as challenging. I see it as keeping life interesting. Well, you know that I think that you can do anything with art, including express your value system. And all of my art is not about social issues, although most of it is. I think that that's just the way I think. That's my value system. But there's no reason that you should or should not do social justice art. I think you should be thoughtful about what kind of values you are expressing. We do seem to have to revisit issues over and over. The issue of abortion is being raised again in the United States. The right to an abortion is being raised. And when I was young, that you couldn't get abortion. And there's a huge movement in the United States to stop abortion again. So some of these issues sort of go round and round like a circle, but there has been significant change, whereas in the late 60s, you couldn't make the argument that that a woman had a right to her own body. That really was an argument we made, but it was only made to a very small group of people. Now you can make that argument and many more people will understand. I think you've selected particularly those women for whom art is a passion, and art takes precedence over most other forms of human interaction. So I think that that's one way of looking at art and life. I think, however, that I would say that as an artist, I'm interested in that issue, and that's a slightly different thing than that all I do is art, which is true. But what I'm investigating is that edge between when you call it art and when you call it life, and why you would call it one or the other. I mean, why would we do art? I'm as interested in that question as I am what art is. What I ask them usually is, who do you want to talk to? Who's your audience? And what's your best imagination of where you'll be? And I find that they usually say, I want everybody, I want a universal audience, and I want to be making enough money to live on, and I want to be in art magazines. And none of those tells you anything about audience except white, upper middle class, and either women or men at this point. More men still than women, but that's all that tells you. It doesn't tell you if you want to reach Mexican immigrants. It doesn't tell you if you want to make an impact on women who are experiencing violence in their lives. So I think as they start refining their idea of audience, it doesn't mean that I don't work for one audience. I work for multiple audiences. But I'm very clear when I put something in the Mori Museum, there's a certain kind of people that are going to come see it in Japan, right? And so I'm addressing the art world, the art community in Japan, and probably some broader community, because I know you're a popular museum. But I know that I'm not probably addressing people who are poor or people who are in Fukushima trying to rebuild their lives, right? So I think it's important to be clear who you're speaking to and what your ambition is in that exchange of ideas. I don't really equate those things. I think that the experience of aging isn't much different than I imagined it would be, because I had a lot of older women friends that I talked to. So, and they tell you what it's like. And I think that, I think I was interested in aging as a younger woman for two reasons. One had to do with the way in which older women were prejudiced against. That was pretty pretty clear that you disappeared when you were an older woman. I think it's less true in my profession of teaching. I think, you know, in the university, the older you are, supposedly the wiser you are. But certainly it's still true that in certain circles of just meeting people, if you're an older woman, you disappear in a different way than older men do, although they have other kinds of issues. But the other issue, and probably more important and probably not understood, was I was interested in being a human being in a body that changed without your volition. So if you look at a lot of these circumstances I was looking at, rape is a circumstance of violence that occurs to a body without your volition. In a sense, it's a kind of mind-body investigation for me. What is it like to be in a body that changes inevitably? If you're lucky to live long enough, your body will change, and it will change in ways that you won't be able to move the same way, you won't be able to think the same way, but you're still the same you. But this physical, you know, biological entity that we are transforms itself. So it's an issue of your mind and your body being still different, and that probably is a Western, that's, you know, sort of fundamental to the Western kind of notion of self. Now, I never understood why I was born into this body instead of a man's body, and certainly when I was a kid, I didn't make any distinction, you know. So finding myself as a woman having to deal with certain kind of situations and circumstances because of this container that my consciousness lives in was always slightly strange to me.